Inside my house, but like one street over. You okay, buddy? And it looks like I'm naked. Oops. I wear this tank top probably half the times that I stream. I just fucked up today. Not with this. I just fucked up generally speaking. Like, I'm one of the type of people, I really need structure to, like, not go crazy. And then, like, I've kind of been slacking on that recently. Like, normally I wake up every day and, like, I take a walk and do all that. And I just have had, like, I don't know. I didn't eat or consume caffeine in the correct timing and quantities today. And now I just feel like a little bit off my rocker. And something I've been working on for a while is fucked up. And I can't get into the details more than that, but it's really not that serious. Like, it's fine. It's just annoying because I put a lot of work into it and it's not what I want. You know? I'm like, so today's topic, this is going to be kind of like a loosey-goosey night. We don't have a ton of slides. It's still like 65 or something like that. But this topic, I really want to like dive deeper into this topic. So I was trying to pick like a specific niche thing to cover for a stream. And I was like, really couldn't decide, and I was like, let's just talk about it in general, and then the niche will find itself, and we can do it in a couple weeks. So when I say youth culture of the 1960s, we're going to talk about, like, high level, about a lot of different things that were going on with music, and, like, sexual norms, and, social justice, anti-war movements. Like, we're going to talk about a lot of stuff tonight, and if there's anything in particular that like we're really into, then I want to focus more in on that later, because it's literally just like the 1960s has so much going on, and I felt like youth culture was a good way to explore that and then figure out where we want to explore further after that. And this is a mixture of slides. Let me tell you actually where this is from, because I've used these slides with y'all before. Oh, I hope it was logged in on this. I've used these slides with y'all before. Y'all usually like them. A lot of them I made. I don't know my login to this. A lot of them I made, but then a fair amount of them are from Teachers Pay Teachers that I use with my AP students. So obviously the ones that are like in-depth and opinionated are not the ones I use in class. Great time to give the disclaimer. The views and opinions expressed in this program are those of the speaker and do not reflect the views or positions of any entities they work at or represent. This is me in my personal time doing my thing. So there's like way too many cars stopping right here. That was like the third one. What's going on? I'm the neighborhood watch. So some of these things are things we talk about in school, but most of them are not. And I really want to tell you who makes these slides because they're really good. And I use their slides a lot, and I bought them on Teachers Pay Teachers, so I'm trying to log in to see my, like, purchase history. Yeah, my purchases, that's what I want. Oh, did I even purchase them on this account? They are from the AP shop on Teachers Pay Teachers. They have slides for lots of AP classes on there. I think mainly history, but I don't know. They're really good. They have a PowerPoint for each topic of the year. This is like not sponsored in any way. I just really like what they're doing. And I didn't want to present something as falsely mine. I put their link down there if there's any teachers here who like want to be a part of that. Yeah, it looks like they have like AP US, World, and Euro. So that's like all social studies stuff. But yeah, really, really cool. Great work going on over there. Sorry, I told you I'm feeling a little bit off my rocker today, and then having to open that, now I have like a million windows open. How are y'all doing? Let's talk about that for a minute. Made it to my first live stream, 2 cats in a trench coat. Welcome. Would you ever stream on The View? I feel like it has a good mix of pop culture and current event lore. I am not a watcher of The View, so I'm definitely open to it, but I just like don't know enough about it. 'Twas supremely disappointed to be absent last week, so eager to be back. Welcome, Lemur Banana. I watched a poli-sci lecture on Iran this weekend, and I feel so ready for this class. Oh wait, did this like go ahead when I didn't want it to? Yeah, there we go. It hasn't started yet, right? I can't see anything. No, we have not really started yet. I mean, I've just kind of been talking. I'm like itchy. I've been outside a fair amount, and I think bugs bit me. Next week's stream is going to be cool. Y'all, and this is going to be cool too. Just like I said, it's not going to be as like niche or super in-depth on one thing. Next week is going to be very in-depth about a very specific thing. I did not know this until very recently. So I did know that during the Great Depression, a bunch of people went to California because they were like, the Dust Bowl ruined my entire life and I needed a job. So they went to California. I did not know that California had like border patrol. Like they were like, we're done. Like you're not coming here. And it really goes back to like one of the like the chief of police in LA, like his thoughts about it. It's really crazy. I listened to a podcast about it recently and I was like, that's something we need to be looking into. Do you have a stream on Hillary Clinton? No. I have a lot of mixed feelings about Hillary Clinton. My mother gets very angry when I talk shit about Hillary Clinton because she's like, she paved the way for so many women and like I get that or whatever, but like mistakes were made and there are things that I'm upset at her personally for. The one thing I will give her is she did say my favorite quote of all time, but I hate that she said it because I don't want to like put it in my email signature or anything. Like to me, this is the quote that would be in my email signature if Hillary Clinton didn't say it. Not that I think she's the worst, but I definitely like am not a huge fan of hers. Like she's not the best to me. So like she's not making the email signature. She's just done too many things that I'm like about. But a quote that she said that I love is there's no such thing as other people's children. And that's like one of my favorite quotes of all time. I think that like rings so true to how I feel about the world, that like children are everyone's responsibility and children are so important. And like children should have rights and stop getting treated like shit by society and people with power. And so, yeah. Okay, so this is my take on Hillary Clinton. I want a nuanced source of info about her. I'm not against doing Hillary Clinton, but it would literally take me like weeks of research. So this is one thing that I think about Hillary Clinton. I heard a like women's speaker talk about this one time. I can't remember what her name was, but she named this thing and she calls it the smush. And it's basically this trap that a lot of powerful women find themselves in, where like you can't be too sexy, but you can't be too like matronly. You have to be smushed into the middle. You can't be too loud, but you have to assert yourself. So you get smushed in the middle. And I think that's kind of what happened to Hillary Clinton, is that like she has just been ripped apart by the media because of sexism and misogyny for decades, that she comes across as so inauthentic and so fake to me. But I understand why she does, and I empathize with that, because I think if I had been getting ripped apart by the media for 40 years, 50 years, like however long it's been going on, I think that I would also be really like, insecure is not the right word, but like you would just have your guard up and just be thinking about every little thing you're saying and like just not come across authentically at all. So I do feel for her in that regard. Jodayton25, thanks for subscribing for 8 months on a 5-month streak, period. So yeah, that's how I feel about Hillary Clinton. Because I will say, when I look at the work she did earlier in her career, like before Bill Clinton was famous and before they even got married, I do think, like, you look at the way she dresses and you look at the work that she did and the rare clips of her back then, she comes across so much more passionate and authentic. And so I wish I could see Hillary Clinton in a world free of misogyny. Like, I just feel like she would be such a different person. And I think that, you know, I don't know her personally, but I think that she has very often sided with people that have done horribly unethical things. And I don't like that. So I guess that's my take on Hillary Clinton. Sometimes I wonder if she would have been president, bigger / popular, if she wasn't tied to Bill. Well, this is what I was saying when my mom gets really angry when I talk shit about her because of the whole smush thing. My mom, that's the funniest thing about her. She was like, do you think that if Hillary Clinton had known it would have been cool to be an older single woman 40 years, she would have married that idiot Bill Clinton? Why do you think she did that? Like, so that's what I mean with, like, not being authentic. Like, I think she did not live her truth in her life, and now you're just like a woman who very obviously didn't live your truth in your life. So yeah, all that to say, not a fan, but I have other people that I'm more focused on hating than Hillary Clinton. So maybe one day. Maybe one day. Tonight, I'm drinking my absolute favorite sparkling water in the world. It's, if I can not choke on my own spit, Blue Raspberry Pop. It's kind of tastes like a bomb pop, but I'm not going to tell you it tastes like a bomb pop. It's like the LaCroix version of a bomb pop. Like, it tastes like it has, like, the whisper of a bomb pop. But it's so, so good. She gets away with way too much blame for Monica while they're both victims. Well, here's the thing. Maybe I'm wrong to say this. I truly think she didn't give a fuck. Like, I think outside of the public embarrassment, she did not care. Like, I don't think she cared about the act. I think she cared that he was stupid enough to do it at work and get caught. Like, that's my personal opinion, because it does not seem like they are married for love, and just the outside looking in. And is this a safe space? I say on the internet with over 100 people watching that's going to be posted forever. I may have heard through the grapevine from someone who had a relative that worked in the White House while the Clintons were there that they are not married, like in the traditional emotional sense. They are business partners. They do not sleep in the same room. They talk in the hallway. Everything's very business. We got this appearance where you're going here. And that is the dynamic between them. And that rings true to what I have observed. And then how do I put this delicately? Because this is the internet and I don't want to say anything bad. But I have heard that both Hillary and Bill have have close friendships outside of their marriage. Some of them long term, with some people you might least expect. I'll leave it at that. It wouldn't surprise me at all if their marriage was strictly professional. Yeah. I remember our class joking about them using a bunk bed during the Monica stream. So that's why I think, like, when he cheated, she was like, "Okay." She was like, "Oh, likely thing. I worked in politics for years. It's definitely true." Yeah. I disagree. I think Bill and Hillary are the epitome of a wonderful marriage. Do you work for the DNC? Like, I don't want to spill the tea. I don't want Hillary Clinton to be mad at me if she sees this. I just heard a rumor that Hillary Clinton, like, really values her female friendships. Like, I just heard that Hillary Clinton is, like, women's rights and we have to have close, long relationships with women. That female friendship above anything else. Yeah. I like female friendship. Doesn't everyone value female friendship? I believe. Okay. Anyway, so the youth culture of the 1960s. Let's get into something that won't get me put on a list. Everyone's saying, "Oh, I didn't say that. I never said that. I would never say that." Also, everyone says if you have nails, you can't open stuff. This is how I do it. I, like, don't open it with my nail. I open it with, like, the little fatty callus part of my finger. That's what I do. Man, he could have just not slept with his intern and no one would have known, probably. Exactly. And I think that's probably what he's done historically and after that. If she came up today with that, like, that's what we're saying is, it's like, she didn't know. Like, the decision she was making, we live in a world she had not conceived. So, big part of the 1960s youth culture, social revolution and cultural movements. I'm sure a lot of us have seen this photo of the people putting, like, the flowers in the weapons of, I believe that's the National Guard, not 100% sure though. Yeah, y'all have seen this. Let's get into it. Who are these people? What are they doing? So in the 1960s and 70s, there was an emerging pattern of social and cultural anger by young Americans. So keep in mind, let me set the stage for you of what's going on at this time in history. 60s and 70s, Vietnam War is going on, Cold War is going on. During and after civil rights movement, women's rights movement. So, like, that's a lot of the stuff that we're going to talk about today. So young Americans were kind of like, we hate the government and we hate everything and change it. I picked this topic because I think this, like, it very much resonates with the times that we're going through right now, especially when you think about, like, U.S. involvement in foreign conflict, especially when you think about, like, gender and sexuality and race and things like that. Like, I think there's just a ton of parallels. My grandma went to Wesley with Hillary. OG Hillary was cool, but Bill killed the vibe. That's what I'm saying. That's what I think as well. That's my theory. I hope you've been resting so far this summer. I've been running around like a chicken with my head cut off. I don't really know why. So, do y'all hear that? What's happening right now? Student movement and the new left. Not the new left of now. New for the 1960s. So some of the first people to really rebel against established authority were college and university students, very much as we see today. That is just like historically accurate through time, that like generally the young people of this generation are more like of the whatever time you're living in, the young people, the generation that's like coming up, they're the ones to notice more things. And especially like they have a lot of their life ahead of them, especially if they don't have children yet, like they can focus on these things. And in 1962, a newly formed radical student organization called the Students for a Democratic Society held a meeting in Port Huron, Michigan. This is one of the things that might be a future stream topic. Like I said, there's like a ton of topics tonight that we'll touch on, that some of them I want to go more in depth on over the next couple months. So if you see something that you're like, I want to know more about that, feel free to chime in, because that's how I'm going to like feel it out from here. Also, can I just say, like, that guy's beard is crushing it. Crushing it. I'm in Michigan. I love Michigan. I was in Ann Arbor, when was that? October, I think, and it was beautiful. I've really never spent that much time in Michigan. I have some family there, so I went one time when I was a kid, but it was beautiful. If it was not freezing, I would consider it a place to live. So they were following the leadership of Tom Hayden, and they issued a declaration of purposes known as the Port Huron Statement. It called for university decisions to be made through a participatory democracy so that students would have a voice in the decisions that were affecting their lives. So again, like very similar to, I feel like, what we saw with so many students protesting their universities, and their universities, a lot of them were like giving research and information and getting funding from the government of Israel, or like had ties to the government of Israel, and students were upset about that because of the genocide happening in Palestine. And I know that was like lots of people protesting graduations. I guess this last graduation season and the one before that, because it's been going on for a long time now. So kind of similar vibes to at this time, like students want to have a voice in their university of decision making and things like that. So they were a prominent organization in the 1960s, like we said. They were originally evolving from the Student League for Industrial Democracy, which is a youth branch of a socialist organization. So OVs, like the government's gonna be like, don't do that. Especially because this is the Cold War. And the key document, the Port Huron Statement, was written, like we said, by Tom Hayden, and it outlined their vision for participatory democracy, civil rights, because again, 1962, so that is before integration was like really super legally mandated on a federal level. So like height of the civil rights movement, and opposition to militarism, because the Vietnam War went on for 20 years, starting in 1955. So by this time, we're like pretty deep into the Vietnam War. I just watched an incredible Netflix documentary about the Vietnam War. It did make me cry. And I feel like they did an incredible job of really hearing from everyone's voice involved. There were so many Vietnamese people who were part of the Communist Party, that were part of the uprising of the Liberation Front, usually known as Viet Cong, but that's kind of a slur. There were people part of the South Vietnamese, like, provincial government. There were people that worked at the embassy. There were tons of veterans. Like, you really, and it's long. I don't remember, but it's new, and it's like 5 or 6 episodes. Oh, I'm not logged into Netflix on this computer. Damn it. Maybe I'm logged in on my phone. Pause. This is why I picked this tonight, because I really wanted to be able to get distracted. No Netflix, but fucking Nearpod. Okay. Yeah, no, I'm not logged in. Damn it. Merp. Maybe it'll come up on Google. Netflix Vietnam documentary. Was it this one? Turning Point? Yeah, I think it's called Turning Point, the Vietnam War. It's 5 episodes. It just came out in 2025. Turning Point. I think if I send this link, it'll work. Maybe. There we go. Let me put on the multi-stream chat. I always forget about y'all. Turning Point, like the turning point. But yeah, and it went into like, it had so much that I didn't know. Like, that's what I mean. A 20-year war, like, there's just so much information on it. Also, I kind of want to see the Port Huron statement. Let me Google it. Port Huron statement. Oh, it's like low-key kind of long. But this does give me an opportunity to plug the American Yap. Let me send you the actual link to it. It's a free online history textbook. Full disclosure, I have not read the whole thing, but what I have read, I really like. I instruct my class to use this. I think it's good. It's pretty easy to navigate, and I love that it's free. And it's every single time period in history. There's no ads, there's no paywall. They don't try and get your email address. It's really just, they're doing the damn thing. It's not the most interestingly written. It's not super engaging. It's it reads like a textbook because that's what it is. But I think it's very straightforward. It's easy to understand, in my opinion, for high school, college level. Big fan of it. And the Port Huron thing is on there. So we are a people of this generation, bred at least in modest comfort, housed now in universities, looking uncomfortably to the world we inherit. When we were kids, the U.S. was the wealthiest and strongest nation in the world, the only one with an atom bomb, the least scarred by modern war, the initiator of the United Nations that we thought would distribute Western influence throughout the world, freedom and equality, blah, 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 principles we could live by as men, blah, blah, blah. Many of us began maturing in complacency. As we grew, our comfort was penetrated by events too troubling to dismiss. The Southern struggle against racial bigotry, the Cold War, the presence of the bomb, all these other problems either directly oppressed us or rackled our consciousness. I think you get the vibes. We would replace power rooted in possession, privilege, and circumstance by power rooted in love, reflectiveness, reason, and creativity. Okay, so a couple notes. I'm loving the energy and I'm loving the vibes, and maybe this is just because I live in a literacy crisis and I guess they didn't. This is too long. If you have a list of demands, it needs to be short, sweet, and to the point. This is a little too flowery. They're we want more participatory. We want uniqueness rooted in love. No, you need to be I want X million dollars to go to. You need to be very specific if you're going to be having demands, at least in my opinion. So, what are some things that they did other than creating that document? They did a lot of teach-ins about the Vietnam War, because keep in mind, a lot of people didn't really know what was going on because, it's far away. And think about most Americans today. Do they know what's going on? No. So they would have free classes where you could basically come and learn about it. They were a part of the March on Washington in 1965. They had one of the largest anti-war demonstrations during this time, drawing 25,000 people. Lots of student strikes, building occupations, and draft resistance actions. And then in 1968, they played a key role in occupying buildings to protest racism and war-related research at Columbia. So very similar to some protests that have happened in the last 2 years. War-related research, working with weapons companies, profiting off of war, all of the things. By the late 1960s, internal divisions grew over strategy and ideology. This is the thing that always gets the left, is we can't get on the same page, because it's a lot easier to be on the same page in fascism, because in fascism you don't care about people getting hurt. You don't care about people getting hurt, and you don't have to listen to other people's opinions, so they get stuff done a lot faster, I've noticed, as opposed to more left-wing people. They're oh, we have to have a committee where everyone's heard, and even though that is really true in my spirit, sometimes you do just need to shut up and get to work. And sometimes it's not perfect, but progress is more important than perfection. So sometimes even if it's not perfect, it's still going to be a net positive. So let's just keep going. Even though it's not perfect, we'll just learn and improve for next time. And I feel like that's what always gets the left is like, they're like, oh no, if it's not exactly this, like we can't. And I'm like, maybe just like lower your expectations like a little bit. Like not lower your standards, because you should be working towards like all the things being perfect and equal and great. But like, yeah, progress, like baby steps. And I feel like some people hesitate to take baby steps because they're like, oh, but that's not the end result I want. And it's like, okay, well, that wasn't really an option right now. So, you know, by 1969, they fractured at their national convention. The radical Weather Underground faction emerged. They advocated for militant action. We'll talk a little bit about them as well. And again, like some people are a little more extreme than others. Some people, violence is like not a deal breaker for them. Other members formed more localized or moderate groups, but they eventually disbanded in the early 1970s. So that's kind of one of our options that we could learn some more about is the SDS. But activists and intellectuals who supported these ideas became known as the New Left. So the first major student protest took place in 1964 at Berkeley, the University of California. Very common place for protest. The Berkeley children love protesting. Calling their cause the free speech movement, Berkeley students demanded an end to university restrictions on student political activities. It's crazy that college kids back then look like boomers because that's when boomers were in college. Because, like, that's the boomers. So that's why they're dressed like that and they have their haircuts like that. But I just feel like people look so much younger now. This is some video from that free speech protest.
It's been said that we've been revolutionaries and all this sort of thing. In a way, that's true. We've gone back to a traditional view of the university. The traditional view of the university is a community of scholars, of faculty and students get together who, with complete honesty, who bring the hard light. Bring the hard light of free inquiry to bear upon important matters in the sciences, but also in the social sciences, the question of just, what ought to be, not just what is. Now, that traditional view of the university, that's the one that had been attacked by the revolutionaries, by those who...
I'm sorry, I know it's, like, important, but he's just not that engaging of a speaker. Like, I gave you 57 seconds and you didn't grab me. So, I don't know what the fuck happened here. Oh, there they go. My computer's just loading a little bit slow. So, by the mid-1960s, students across the country were protesting a variety of university rules. These are the main university rules that I'm happy they're protesting. They had rules against drinking and rules about dorm visits by members of the opposite sex. Look at all those students that are like, we want to drink and fuck! And I respect that because you do have free speech, man on the bottom left. And you should be able, if you have to pay for a dorm, you should be allowed to do what you want to do in that dorm within reason. His speechwriter needs to be fired. That's insane that they used to have those rules. Especially, I think, like, a lot of the rules were really sexist and they would only enforce them with the girls' dorms, which, like... So, they also demanded a greater voice in the government of the university. These demonstrations escalated when the U.S. involvement in the Vietnam War escalated. So, hundreds of campuses were disrupted or even closed down by anti-war protesters. So, some of this we've talked about if you're like a regular attendee. We've talked a lot about the Vietnam War around here. Not in a couple years, though, actually. So, end imperialist aggression in Vietnam, end the war. So, let me give like a really quick TLDR of like the Vietnam War for anybody that doesn't know, just like give you context here. So basically, Vietnam, it's after World War II. Vietnam had been getting imperialized by France for a long time. There had been a lot of conflict in Vietnam historically because they had been being like oppressed by Europeans, and that's not fun for anybody. Well, for the Europeans, I think they like it. But anyway, so after World War II, Vietnam is like, we would like to be our own country. And in the north, Ho Chi Minh was like a communist leader in the north. So Vietnam is kind of like split in half. You have communism in the north and a slightly more capitalist society in the south. Sidebar, from my sidebar, I hate when people say the North was communist and the South was democratic, because there were not free and fair elections in the South, and communism is a economic style and democracy is like a political, like they're not in the same category to use them. Like you're doing apples and oranges if you say that. So anyway, the South was very closely allied with the US, very capitalistic. The North was very communist. And so the North was being heavily supported by the USSR, so naturally the South America is like, you're our best friend, we have to win this war. That is called a proxy war. So we are basically fighting the USSR without either of us actually declaring war on each other. We're just both helping. But it was like a huge shit show, and the government of the South was like super corrupt. They didn't have fair elections. They killed a lot of people for religious reasons. It was just like really bad. So then eventually there was like an uprising in the South that was like, we hate the government. We want to be part of the communist North. And then the government in the South got like toppled. And so then the US was like, oh, we're helping the South, but like, who is the South? And it went on for 20 years. And it was just a mess. And technically it ended after 20 years. But what I learned from that documentary is it didn't really end. Like conflict just kept happening. And the US like really fucked over a lot of people. And a lot of people died. And it's really horrible for everyone involved. Because even the US soldiers, like even though they committed a lot of atrocities, the vast majority of them got drafted. And a lot of atrocities were done to them as well. Like it's like atrocities on atrocities. Like it's horrible. Like the communist North was committing atrocities against the people in the South. Like the government of the South was committing atrocities against their own people. The US was committing atrocities. Like, it's called Turning Point. It's on Netflix. It's very long. It's like 5 episodes. It's very long, but it's very good. It took me a couple weeks to watch it because it's very heavy, but it's very good. Very, very detailed. So anyway, that's your TLDR of the Vietnam War. So all the kids are pissed because they're like, we're getting drafted. We're dying in this war. And this literally has nothing to do with us. Like, this is a country all the way around the world. Like, the people there don't even really want us there. Like, it was just a mess. It's a mess. It's a mess. So, these are some anti-war marches. Does this have noise or no? Also, I really wanted to play music. Not in my hair. I wish drunk history was still a thing. You would eat. Oh, it's not a thing anymore. We should bring that back. Or I can just do it myself. Some episodes of this are drunk history. And then, because the war went on for so long, tons of veterans were coming back because you're only at war for a couple years. The war went on for 20 years. So you have all these veterans being like, we should not be over there. It's an unwinnable war. This is fucked up. I'm fucked up now because you sent me there. So like, it was really bad PR for the US government, but the US government was like so committed to like being like, we will not let it fall to communism, that they literally were just like taking loss after loss. And then the war got prolonged because like they knew that the war was unwinnable. So no one wanted to pull out because it would make them look bad in election years. So they just like kept it going for years. A lot of people, very popular to protests. Richard Nixon is burning in hell. We can only hope. Bring all the GIs home. Pictures, because this was also like, this war was very heavily reported on, and lots of journalists were like going there, so people were seeing more in the news than they had. So imagine you turn on the news and see someone you went to high school with get shot live on television. Horrible. So yeah, you get the vibes. Lots of protests during this time. One of the more radical groups was called the Weathermen. So this is a fringe of the SDS that we talked about earlier. What does SDS stand for again? I already forgot. Students for a Democratic Society. I should know that, but I forgot it. Sorry, my brain is broken. So, the Weathermen. They embraced violence and vandalism. They were like, we got to get shit done. Violence makes people pay attention. Violence makes people listen. So they were like, let's bomb buildings. Let's fuck shit up around here. And you can imagine a lot of people that are anti-war were like, well, I don't really like it when people get hurt and there's fire and bombs. So that created a fair amount of division. This is another idea I have for a more in-depth topic because I do not know much about them and I would like to learn. I'm very interested why I don't know more about them. So, let's learn.
A federal grand jury in Detroit today charged the 13 top leaders of the Weathermen with plotting to bomb public buildings in Chicago, Detroit, New York, and Berkeley, California. The Weathermen are the militant faction of the Students for a Democratic Society. Only one of the 13 is now in custody.
At 7:30 this morning, KPFK received a call from a woman identifying herself as a member of the Weather Underground.
Hello. I'm going to read a declaration of a state of war.
Ooh.
This is the first communication from the Weatherman Underground.
Okay, spooky.
Kids know the lines are drawn. Revolution is touching all of our lives. Freaks are revolutionaries, and revolutionaries are freaks. If you want to find us, this is where we are. In every tribe, commune, dormitory, farmhouse, barracks, and townhouse, where kids are making love, smoking dope, and loading guns, fugitives from American justice are free to go. Within the next 14 days, we will attack a symbol or institution of American injustice.
Ooh. They did bomb a fair amount of buildings.
Power belongs to the young people and the black people in this country. Come on, we gotta fight it out. We gotta build a strong base, and someday we gotta knock those mother...
This is what I'm very curious about, is did they hurt or kill anyone? I do not know. And, I just want to know more about them, because I'm inherently against violence. I think violence is horrible, and violence just breeds resentment generationally and is sometimes effective in the short term, but always has worse long-term consequences. So that's why I'm against violence. But violence against human beings. I, for one, find some activism to be admirable. An example I will give is sometimes when climate activists... What is he doing? What are you doing? What's happening out there? When climate activists will, go to an oil pipeline and make it impossible for them to do oil by, covering something or moving something, that I think it's okay, I see where your mind is at. Is it a technical crime? Yes. Am I volunteering to do it? No. But to me, that is very different than harming a human being. You get what I'm saying? So that's why I'm curious, the bombing of the buildings, and it's saying they had violence. I'm curious what that looked like. I'm not saying they're good or bad or right or wrong. I just need to know more, and I'm very curious about that. How did the boomers go from this to how they are now?
Motherfuckers to control this thing right on their ass.
The FBI said the Weather Underground organization, which took credit for the bombing, is the same radical group which was responsible for the bombing of the U.S. Capitol in 1971 and the Pentagon in 1972. But federal officials don't really know much about the group, which is believed to have between 20 and 30 members.
My name is Bernadine Dorn, and I was part of the Weather Underground from, it's hard to say when it started, 1970 to 1980.
Oh, shit.
It's underground for 11 years. There's no way to be committed to nonviolence in the middle of the most violent society that history's ever created. I'm not committed to nonviolence in any way.
And I do see their point with that. Like, even though it's not the personal stance I have, and like, I think nonviolence is very important, because like, I think when you start being violent, you just become them, and it's just violence on violence. But I see why people think that way, and I really am not gonna like argue, you know?
I'm a teacher now in a community college, and
being a part of the Weatherman Underground is such classic community college professor lore. Like, of course he teaches at community college. Because every community college professor, I went to community college as like dual enrollment when I was in high school. Every community college professor has the craziest lore ever.
Students will occasionally bring up the war in Vietnam and ask me what my involvement was. And I'll say, well, I helped found an organization whose goal was the violent overthrow of the government of the United States. And my students would look at me as if I'm from another planet.
This system is going to be overthrown. It's going to mean a fight. And it's going to mean a lot of white people risking a lot of things when they finally join on the side of the black people and the people of Vietnam and around the world who've already begun the fight.
I'm not going to tell you, oh, I walked in here this day and put a bomb here, or I made this here, or I blew up this car, or I held up this bank. I mean, there were armed robberies. There were all armed robberies, terrorism. You know, there was all kinds of things that went down that are illegal. So
all kind of things that went down that are illegal.
We did them.
So that's what I mean. Like an armed robbery, I'm struggling to see how that helps anyone. I'm struggling to see how that moves society forward. I'm open to hearing you try and change my mind, but I'm struggling to see how an armed robbery corrects injustice. You know? That's where you're losing me a little bit.
I'm not going to tell you which ones I did or who did what, because you just can't do that.
Real. He took an oath. So again, I think that might have to be the topic that comes out of tonight. That's really, really, really intriguing to me. In the eyes of most Americans, their extremist acts and languages only discredited the New Left. So this was kind of really, really terrible PR. Like, it made the left and the anti-war movement look not great. One of my professors was the Ted Bundy murder investigator. Like, exactly. So let's talk about counterculture. You've probably heard this term before. With the political protests, this went hand in hand with new counterculture. So this is young people expressing rebellion. So counter means like opposite from the current culture. Because think, when were most of these people born? If this is the 60s, 70s, most of these people were born in the 50s. So think like 1950s, cookie cutter house, everyone living in a house that's the same as each other. Levittown, if you remember when we learned about that. Everyone's dressing the same. It's very like mom, dad, 2 kids, white picket fence. Like, so people were kind of like, I don't want that. Like, I don't want to wear a pastel Easter dress. Like, I want to be outside. And that's what they were doing. Rebellious styles of dress, the music, drug use, and for a lot of people, communal living became a thing because they were like, I don't want that separated life where like it's keeping up with the Joneses and every single house on the block, like you're all isolated in your own homes alone every day. They're like, I want to live with a large group of people, which is, if you look at human history, kind of the way that we're designed. Same as whales. Like, whales travel in pods. Like, that's a lot. So this is what you probably think of as the hippies or the flower children. The long hair, the beards, the jeans. Keep in mind, jeans are relatively, like, the bell-bottom things. Those are, I know to us it's like jeans, but back then it was like, whoa, casual Kathy over here in her fucking bell-bottom jeans. Lot of smoking on that reefer taking place. That was big at the time. So that's the vibes. So the press made fun of dope-smoking Hyde Park hippies.
London's Hyde Park becomes a hippie festival as some 3,000 so-called flower children gather to preach love, peace, and legalized pot. Marijuana to us. The colorful, chaotic congregation used posters to plead their cause. A confiscated accordion used to accompany Buddhist chants, and the speedily removed smoke bomb were the only incidents. The nonviolent demonstration brought stares, gasps, and chuckles. And And this just has to be the living end.
So, yeah, that's kind of the look. CBS interview from the 1960s about the hippies. I haven't watched these videos, by the way.
Hippies sitting on the street in their bare feet, and women couldn't walk around them. As far as I'm concerned, they should have been charged there and taken and incarcerated, because not only do they have rights, but I think the decent people of Vancouver have rights too.
Can you charge someone for not wearing shoes?
This is a group of society, and it's not a racial group. This is as of their own choice.
He's like, this is not a race issue.
Drop out of society onto society. They want to contribute absolutely nothing to the welfare of the community, and yet they look to us for all the services. They expect hospital care when they take bad trips. They expect police protection when they get into trouble, and yet when the police are around, they shout fuzz. They expect the public libraries, the parks. They don't want to pay taxes. They want to take everything and give nothing.
He's so
They
mad.
are parasites on the community. We've got a scum community that have organized, have decided to grow long hair, have decided to pretend to be hippies. They want to take everything, give
What do you
nothing.
mean pretend?
Half of them are American draft dodgers who won't even fight for their own country, who are up here for protection. If they were in their homeland, they'd be in
'cause
jail.
he's in Canada.
Now, if we were in
They're
trouble,
draft
if they
dodgers.
wouldn't fight for their mother country, what do you think they do for their adopted country? Nothing, which is exactly what they're doing now. Nothing.
Oh my God. He's so mad. So another thing that was like kind of going on around this time, the Summer of Love in San Francisco. Here's some pictures of it if you don't know what that is. It's basically just a bunch of people hanging out in San Francisco. Let's watch this. This is Hippie Bus Tour Hippie Bus Tour San Francisco Summer of Love 1967.
I would say that the last 18 months have seen a tremendous increase of the so-called hippies who have invaded and lived in this area.
So part of what happened in 1967 with the Summer of Love is, if you don't know, the weather in San Francisco is fucking phenomenal. Like, it's really, really comfortable year round. So if you're just going to be outside and live outside, that's kind of the spot to do it. And San Francisco has a ton of beautiful parks. Like I said, it's gorgeous. So it just kind of spread through word of mouth. Like a bunch of hippies were hanging out there and we're like, invite your friends. And people were like, oh, I heard it's lit in San Francisco. And again, a lot of these people are dodging the draft. A lot of these people are living in communes, traveling on, oh, I froze. I'm back. Traveling in buses going around the country. So they just kind of get word like, oh, summer in San Francisco, we lit. And then a bunch of people went there. And then the residents of San Francisco were like, hey, there's like 100,000 people just living outside, smoking pot, singing and dancing, which like, I'm trying to go to work. And like, valid, I guess. But also, is it? So yeah, that's the Summer of Love. So now I'm thinking, I want to keep track of my ideas for this. Because now I want to do one about the Summer of Love too. Let me know if y'all are into these new ideas, because like I said, we're going to talk about a lot tonight, and I could very easily get distracted, which I am. We've already been here for almost an hour. Summer of Love, Weathermen, SDS. Cool. All right. So this is sort of related. We're running out of time, so I'm going to skip over this. So the folk music of the time was Joan Baez, I think that's how you say it, and Bob Dylan. And again, I really wanted to play music, but last time I played music, I got like a very scary email from Twitch, and they made me sign an oath saying that like what I did was not stealing and that I would never do it again. And so I'm afraid. So also this is probably what you know, the rock music, the Beatles, the Rolling Stones, Jim Morrison, Janis Joplin. Great music from this time. This, in my opinion, is one of the greatest musical eras that America has ever had. This almost reaches the greatness of Britney Spears. Not quite, but almost. Where the 1960s psychedelic look came
If someone were to show you these album covers, or these posters,
I love Vox.
Even if you'd never heard of the bands featured, you'd probably be able to guess what kind of music they play. This style has become synonymous with the psychedelic 60s. But these abstract forms and curly, barely legible lettering, they weren't created in the 1960s. They came from a celebrated art movement, one that started almost a century earlier.
Okay, art. Love art.
In the late 1800s, new technology, electrical power, telephones, cars, was changing the way the world worked. And the way it
I took a whole class on the
And some
Beatles in
people,
college. God, I love
especially
college.
artists, living through this technological revolution, were not so into all the new industry. To be blunt, they thought it was ugly.
Real.
Out of this conflict, a new global artistic movement was born, one that went by many different names, like the Secessionists in Austria and the Glasgow School in Scotland. But you might know it as Art Nouveau, which literally means new art in French. Its creators wanted to make art that reflected the vibrancy of city life. They used flat, decorative patterns, feminine figures, and organic and plant motifs, often stylized with fluid, abstract forms. And they applied this new visual language to just about everything.
This is
from
pretty.
architecture to paintings to textiles
I love
and
individualism.
beyond, because they believed that aesthetics should go hand in hand with utility. And
Yes.
no object was too mundane to be beautiful.
Exactly.
Like this entrance to the Paris subway. Or these posters by Alphonse Mucha, advertising champagne and biscuits, which are just as much about being beautiful as they are about conveying information. Okay, back to the hippies. Like the late 1800s, the 1960s were a time of cultural upheaval.
The Vietnam struggle goes on.
In the US, the epicenter of this change was San Francisco, where hundreds of thousands
Look what
of
they
young
took
people
from us.
descended upon the city.
Now everything's
for
gray.
things like protests and drum circles. And of course, concerts. Lots and lots of concerts. Particularly dance concerts, featuring trippy psychedelic music from bands like Jefferson Airplane and the Grateful Dead. And there was one major way to get people to come to your concert: a good poster. Back then, these now iconic bands were just starting out, playing back-to-back shows at venues like the Fillmore and the Avalon. And to advertise this new generation of hippie bands, those venues knew that plain typeface and a grayscale photo just wasn't going to
Boring.
cut. So they commissioned work from a small group of artists who developed a brand new formula for concert posters. One that pulled from a variety of established design traditions: comic books, surrealism, and of course, Art Nouveau.
Yeah, that one is the best one.
By the mid-60s, Art Nouveau was already experiencing a bit of a resurgence, especially when it came to textiles. Dynamic floral designs were a
I
natural
love
fit
the
for
fashion
hippie
from that
aesthetic,
time period.
which is probably why in 1965, a museum just outside of San Francisco launched this exhibit. Legend says this is where some of those designers were first exposed to Art Nouveau. One designer, Wes Wilson, told Time magazine that he admired their idea of really putting it out there. And when they started making new
This is
concert
so
posters,
interesting to me.
these designers
Humans are
took
very
those Art Nouveau
interesting.
staples and turned the dial up. Art Nouveau is famous for its feminine figures, most often nude with flowing hair and a come-hither glance. A style those psychedelic designers clearly picked up on.
Canva.
Look at the way these posters are covered edge to edge with detailed two-dimensional illustrations, particularly flowers and abstract curves and also peacocks. That's an Art Nouveau thing too. They loved peacocks.
Because peacocks
And
are pretty.
sometimes, psychedelic designers would use images pulled directly from an Art Nouveau poster, but always with a radically different color palette. Instead of Art Nouveau's soft
This is so
pastels,
cool.
these artists opted for intense, high-contrast colors, said to make your eyes vibrate, a reference to the visual experiences of an LSD tripper. And that curly, cloudy, barely legible font? It started here, on a 1902 poster by Austrian designer Alfred Roller. In the 60s, artists adapted his bold,
I wasn't gonna
dynamic
watch this whole
typeface
thing, but
and
we
pushed
are.
it even further, softening its lines and obscuring its edges, making it nearly illegible, which served a purpose. It was meant to grab your
This is a
attention and keep you
renaissance.
interested, at least for as long as it took to figure out what the poster was trying to tell you. The result was a ton of posters that looked like Art Nouveau on acid. As the music of San Francisco spread throughout the world, so did the aesthetic. In part because posters are easy to own and reproduce and collect, with fans sometimes tearing them down immediately after they were put up. The artists behind them even became celebrities in their own right. A few of them got their own spread in Life magazine. The posters they made, their vibrating colors and winding lines, capture the energy of the 1960s, just like the Art Nouveau ones represent the late 1800s. And while these two time periods don't mirror each other perfectly, both movements were able to create something that captured the feeling of a changing world, and their art reflected that.
That's very cool. That took an unexpected turn, but I'm here for it. So, in 1969, Woodstock happened. I've already done a stream about Woodstock, but honestly, I could easily revisit that. This was a gathering of thousands of young people, and this reflected the zenith of counterculture. I have so much to say about Woodstock. I could talk for hours. I have talked for hours. So interesting. I can't believe it didn't go worse. However, as a result of experimenting with hallucinogenic drugs such as LSD, a lot of people really suffered with addiction from this time. And a big aspect of addiction, because to me, addiction is always like emblematic of trauma. A lot of people went through a lot of trauma during this time. So think about things that were going on during this time. Vietnam War. Tons of soldiers began using drugs during the Vietnam War. There was a lot of opiates available in Vietnam, lots of pot that they were smoking. And then a lot of them, when they came back, were very addicted to drugs, and especially people that didn't have families, didn't have a ton of social support. They also have PTSD. So this is also when crack and cocaine are being introduced. This is kind of when the war on drugs is starting to kind of begin. So think like a lot is going on. Obviously, drugs are a way that a lot of people have destroyed their lives. And counterculture's excesses and economic uncertainties led to its demise in the 70s. A lot of people just were not having a good time. Let's put it that way. People saying drop acid, not bombs, which one has killed more people throughout human history? That's what I'll say. The LSD fueled San Francisco's Summer of Love. I talked about this a little bit already.
San Francisco trembled as a cultural earthquake shook the city. Thousands of young people from around the country were descending on the city's Haight-Ashbury district. Rebels determined to trash their parents' old values while embracing a new age consciousness of sex, drugs, and rock and roll. Encouraged by a loose coalition of beatniks, poets, and writers, these early denizens of the Haight-Ashbury cosmos called for a summer of love in San Francisco, but somebody forgot to tell Police Chief Thomas Cahill.
We know from watching these people and seeing what their activities
are. The theme of tonight is it cutting from like hippies to like a mayor or a police chief, and them just being so fucking angry and uptight kills me.
And particularly
they
their activities as
had
far
the beginnings
as
of therapy, so
marijuana,
yes.
LSD. These are making no contribution to their own lives, to the lives of the community of San Francisco, nor to society as a whole. And certainly nobody should let their young children come into San Francisco unsupervised to become a part of a group such as that.
We do not have an obligation to feed these people, to house them, or to care for them. If they are coming here, they better be prepared to take care of themselves with their own money, to get proper room space, to feed themselves. No public funds will be used. We mean it to take care of our city. Nor will they be allowed to sleep in the parks and in public.
Well, if you're going to keep the hippies out, I think you should keep the spades out. And then maybe the Mexicans.
Oh.
What about the Polacks? You might as well let them all in.
San Francisco.
Those were some slurs I haven't even heard. He was like, matter of fact, there's other people I hate that I'd like to discuss. Sorry, there was a small child on a bike that looked a little concerning for a second. The silent generation was not having it.
They might have put out the welcome mat, but it was too late to stop the exotic immigration in the city by the Golden Gate. Like it or not, San Francisco was host to a hippie happening, and the cultural clash was inevitable.
There was very much a sense of we can drop out.
Don't let your children come to San Francisco when you kick them out the instant they turn 18. That's also true.
And the two cars, and the sort of dad and mom and buddy and sis checkerboard squares kind of existence.
Is that money there, Bernie? Oh my God, that's a $5 bill.
Well, that's just stupid. See, this looks like a vibe. What's the problem? Everyone's having a good time. He's happy.
Well, nobody ever said hippies didn't know how to have fun at the expense of their straight friends. One long pair,
straight friends? Is that? I don't think that's what he meant by that.
Capitalism, hippie humor, even toasted banana peel scrapings, otherwise known as mellow yellow.
Well, we felt that mellow yellow was legal, people could smoke it and enjoy it, and that everybody should have it all across the nation. So we decided to do it ourselves. It's capitalism, laissez-faire style.
Do you get high on it?
I get high on it, yeah. A lot of people get high on it. It works.
California Attorney
He said it's
General
capitalism,
Thomas
baby.
Lynch took
There's
the
always money
business
in the banana
seriously.
stand.
The
I like you.
given by some of the participants is correct. I can see many problems, and I'm sure we'll have to take a good look at it.
By the summer of '67, be-ins, love-ins, and happenings were a regular routine in nearby Golden Gate Park. And the fact that the flower children were destroying the flower beds triggered a powerful instinct in the park's chief gardener. He
that's
wanted
not
revenge
okay.
on the long-haired
They're
hippie.
like trampling the flower beds. Don't do
Out
that.
of a couple of them, if I can get a hold of them. Yeah, as well as mowing the lawn, we might mow a few of them.
Whoa!
It's unclear exactly who was counting, but media reports estimate that more than 75,000 young people floated through the Haight-Ashbury in that supernatural summer.
75,000. That's a
So
lot of
many
people.
tourists jammed the Haight to see the freak show that the Gray Line sightseeing line added special hippie tours.
If we are coming up to the picnic area,
Not the hippie
all
tour.
the stores out in this area been taken over by the picnics, and
Trump was young at this time, but you know he wasn't invited to anything cool. He was busy practicing housing discrimination or something. Yeah, and he was a draft dodger, as someone mentioned earlier.
Picture taken. Come on, over here and smile for the camera. It's improving by the second. What's that moving on his blanket?
One of the more lasting characters to come out of the Haight hippie era is a songwriter, poet, and professional epigrammatist with the unlikely given name of Ashley Brilliant. Honest. Mr. Brilliant entertained tourists
Mr.
with
Brilliant,
lyrics
that's a
like
baller.
Hippie hill, if you've got a lifetime to kill, millions of moments by day and by dark, might as well spend them in Golden Gate Park. You don't have to be mentally ill to enjoy sitting perfectly still.
Yeah.
Feeling so placid while tripping on acid. It's happening on Hippie Hill.
Sure, people got busted for possession of drugs, but there was a mountainous amount of mind-altering substances available, and at prices that were astonishingly low, even by 1967 standards.
The fellow that bought these paid $10 a piece for them, and say 2 or 3 months ago, they would have gone for $7.50.
And he can make about how many cigarettes out of that?
Out of a bag like that, maybe 60, 70 cigarettes.
San Francisco's finest staged an
People
endless
just be doing
series of
anything.
raids on Haight-Ashbury pads, but since it appeared that every other hippie was dealing drugs and sharing them with his friends, the cycle was essentially endless. The state of...
So yeah, you get it. They're trying to police it. It's unpoliceable because it's literally everyone. So yeah, let's talk about the sexual revolution. Imagine trying to date in this time. I would be making bad decisions. I will say, if you had to be alive in an era of American history that's not the one you're alive in now, which one would you pick? I would pick to be born in like the mid-50s, I think. Keep in mind I'm white, so that would be much more hazardous for other people. Because I think being an adult during this time, even though there's a lot of political turmoil, like I feel like women had the right to vote, there's a sexual revolution, like this is when I would want to live my adulthood compared to like if I was born in like the 1920s, I wouldn't be allowed to do fucking anything. You know what I'm saying? 50s or 60s, so I can see the progression of technology. Yeah. So anyway, the sexual revolution. So one aspect of counterculture that continued way beyond the 60s was many attitudes around sexual expression. We became a lot more like open as a society. This is also when Roe versus Wade existed. So let's get into it. So traditional beliefs about sexual conduct had originally been challenged by Alfred Kinsey because he had a lot of surveys. And basically what we found out is that all of these rules we had around sex, people were breaking them. They've been breaking them for years and years and years. We've known this. We have known this. Like, people knew this amongst themselves. If you look historically, this is true. But all these rules, no sex before marriage, no being gay, no infidelity. Everyone's like, you don't do that. No one does that. They are far, far more common. And Alfred Kinsey conducted a very wide group of surveys where he got data to basically say, hey, you're normal. It's normal to have these urges. This has been going on for a very long time. Like, let's all just be a little cooler about it. People have literally been fucking forever. I read an article one time, this was years ago, I think I read it for school when I was in college, about like sexual norms in the late 1800s in America, and it was talking about how it was like very common for women to have like same-sex relationships on the side of their marriage, because like it like wasn't even talked about, so it wasn't taboo. Like it was taboo, but you get what I'm saying. Like people didn't even have a name for it. And it was like relatively common, and like you just kind of didn't talk about it, and it was something that like was behind closed doors, but like lots of people did. And I remember hearing about that, and then about people having sex before marriage. It was very common for engaged couples to have sex. So yeah, people have been a lot chiller for a lot longer than you would think. So this is a little bit about him. He was a sex researcher.
From our Sunday morning almanac. June 23rd, 1894.
Stop talking about Hillary Clinton.
125 years ago
Stop
today.
it.
The day sex researcher Alfred Charles Kinsey was born in Hoboken, New Jersey. A trained biologist, Kinsey achieved fame, even notoriety, in the 1940s and 50s with a pair of best-selling books about male and female sexual behavior. Controversial research he defended on scientific grounds.
I discovered that there was practically nothing known about human sexual behavior in comparison with what we knew about the sexual behavior of other animals.
Kinsey based his eye-opening findings on thousands of personal interviews, training his researchers to first put their subjects at ease, as portrayed in the 2004 film Kinsey, starring Liam Neeson.
I haven't seen this.
You ease in with innocuous questions, people forget they're giving sex histories.
Many of Kinsey's findings and techniques remain controversial, including his occasional reliance on the accounts of admitted child abusers.
That's not good.
Still, he's widely hailed as a trailblazer in a previously taboo field. Alfred Kinsey died in 1956.
The Kinsey scale, like, yep.
62. Today, the research he pioneered continues at the Kinsey Institute at Indiana University in Bloomington.
So let's talk about some reasons that he was considered problematic. But the Kinsey scale, if you don't know what that is, it's the idea that basically, like, human sexuality is on a spectrum, and you're not 100% gay or 100% straight, that like everyone falls on the spectrum. And I do think, maybe I made this part up and that's like a new wave research, but I believe it was also said that like you can move on that spectrum within your life. So what they believed to be true, which I would believe to be true as well, is that there's a lot of people, especially during this time, that, so I don't know the actual numbers of the scale, but let's say 1 is gay and 10 is straight. Maybe someone who's like a 6 or a 7, but they've always been in straight relationships because that's how they've been socialized for society. You know? That's kind of what he's saying there. So his studies, often referred to as the Kinsey reports, were based on thousands of interviews aimed to scientifically document the sexual behaviors of American men and women. His research challenged conventional beliefs. He introduced concepts such as the Kinsey scale that proposed sexual orientation exists on a continuum rather than a binary of heterosexual versus homosexual. It's kind of saying you can be in between. Problems. His work was criticized for using non-random sampling. So non-random sampling basically means like you didn't have a diverse enough group. Like your group could be biased in some way because of where you got people. So random would be like if you got people from tons of different walks of life and you found them all in random ass ways, like in the grocery store, on the subway, on the street, whatever. But if you went to a school and interviewed teachers about the way they budget, that's not a random because it's a category of people. So because he used prisoners and sex workers, people felt like that was biased because those people might have like statistically different experiences. He recorded the data from thousands of personal interviews, but was accused of not verifying truthfulness. So someone might say like, oh yeah, I fuck bitches all the time, but they could be lying. They collected detailed sexual history from subjects, some of whom were minors, which raised ethical concerns about consent and possible exploitation. He was accused of collaborating with known pedophiles to gather data, particularly on the sexual responses of children, which has led to lasting criticism and debate over legitimacy and ethics of his methods. Religious and conservative groups condemned Kinsey's findings for prompting immortality and undermining traditional sexual values. Likely thing that religious and conservative people condemned it. And some psychologists and statisticians criticized his interpretation of data, accusing him of bias and lacking scientific rigor. So the thing about interviewing minors about their sexual experience, I'm not going to say that that's okay, because it's not. But this is what I do want to say about what he said, or them interviewing people that were admitting to being pedophiles. He is a trailblazer on sexual research. I would be very curious to see if he was seeking that information or if that information just came out. Because what I would not be surprised at is, like, as we know, sex crimes, child abuse, sexual abuse in children, sexual abuse in general is something that society does not like to discuss. It's what we like to shove under the rug. We like to act like it comes from random people in alleyways and would never happen to you and yada, 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 whatever. So but we also know it is a rampant problem in our society. It is so widespread. It has affected so many people. It has affected so many children on a day-to-day basis. So I can completely see where you interview thousands of people about their sexuality, some of those people are going to say some very fucked up things in the interviews and admit to horrible things. I do fully believe that. So I'd be very curious if he was like, hey, I want to interview some of those guys. Or if it was like, I want to interview people. Oh my God, what do you mean you did that? I'd be very curious. So like with any scientific researcher, and anything in the world, some great data that really pushed society forward and made people learn a lot, and then also a lot of potentially very dangerous things, though. Let's not normalize that, though. But that's what I'm saying. Like, he was researching. So I can see where that would come up in research. And I think that, like, what do you do when that comes up in research? I'm so glad his problems are data collecting errors and not horrible crimes. I'm sure some unethical things happen, because you also have to think about, it wasn't just him. It is a huge team of people. Think about who signs up to be on the sexual research team. I'm sure exploitation happened somewhere in this. Like, this study is just like any facet of life. Exploitation can happen anywhere. So I'm sure someone did it. I'm not going to say that Kinsey's like 100% perfect person. This is such a delicate issue. It's such a new thing to be researching that there's not protocols, there's not rules, there's not norms, that I can see how some fucked up shit happened. Because when you're investigating and researching something that's so taboo and so not talked about, and also can include so much exploitation and abuse within that topic, like, I just feel like they were like, whoa, like so much going on. And who's interviewing the kids? Exactly. Because it's like, are you interviewing children as a way for them to, like, basically report horrible things happening to them? That's one thing, versus you asking like sexually pointed questions to children. Like, I definitely just need like more information. Like, I can just see, like I said, now in 2025, when we do studies, there's more clear ethical boundaries and rules than there were back then. So I can see why some not chill things happened back then. So, lot of gains in the medical field around sex and sexuality. Medicine for STIs. STIs is sexually transmitted infections. You're supposed to say STI, not STD, because STD is disease, and a lot of them are not diseases. They are infections. So infections is a more accurate term. This is when the birth control pill was introduced in the 60s, and this also contributed to changing attitudes about casual sex. When you can control whether or not you get pregnant, sex becomes a lot more like loosey-goosey for people, which makes a ton of sense. So this is a billboard from Planned Parenthood. Planned Parenthood, also great organization. I've given money to them many times. They do have some questionable things in their background, like so many organizations. Cut shirt, it's very hot, very cool. This would have never happened back in like the 50s. For all its issues, so grateful for birth control. That's really what I have to remember, because like, I physically and personally have had a very bad experience with many birth control pills, but in my life, I've been very grateful to be in charge of my body and my reproduction. Like, those two things can exist simultaneously. So how deeply the so-called sexual revolution changed behavior of Americans is open to question. Because like we said from Kinsey's research, a lot of people were already having premarital sex. A lot of people were already having homosexual relationships, infidelity, and I'm using the words that they're using from the research of the time on purpose, there is little doubt that these became more open. So even though they existed before, they became much more normalized and open, which I think is a net positive for society. Later in the 1980s, there was a general reaction to the loosened moral code, and many people blamed the loosened moral code for an increase in illegitimate births. The teen pregnancy rate did go up, I believe. There was an increase in rape and sexual abuse. I would be really curious, was there an increase or was there an increase in reporting? Because sexual abuse has been common throughout history. I just wonder if it was being reported more on. And then the spread of the very new disease at the time, HIV/AIDS, which now we know a lot more about. This could be a stream topic. It's just so sad and so medical that I'd have to do a lot of research about it because I don't really understand medical things. But basically the AIDS crisis was so horrible because of homophobia, because a lot of the victims of AIDS were gay men. That's like a community that it was very prominent in. So the government was basically like, oh, that's God punishing you. And like it didn't research it as a public health crisis. And it truly was a public health crisis. And now like very grateful to all the scientific researchers who have developed things where like you can still live a normal healthy life and contracting HIV is not a death sentence the way that it used to be. But it took us way too long to get there. Like it took way too long for that research to even be started. And I think that is a really shameful thing in US history. So again, maybe that could be a stream topic, but kind of very super depressing and delicate. So we already talked about this a fair amount, but resistance to the Vietnam War was a big one as well. Oh, and yes, happy Pride Month. So by late 1965, the anti-war movement had begun to take shape in the United States. Get the hell out of Vietnam. We have seen that sign many, many a times. This is the largest anti-Vietnam War protest in 1969 in D.C. We lost almost an entire generation. It's a lot of people. I'm going to skip ahead a little bit.
United States said nothing you young kids would do would have any effect on him. Well, I suggest to the President of the United States, if he wants to know how much effect you youngsters can have on the President, he should make one long-distance phone call to the LBJ Ranch and ask that boy how much effect you can have. Tragically, our nation's leadership,
I think he's referring to like
while striving for peace,
the young people matter because they vote and they'll vote you out.
Makes real peace unlikely. It is a policy that believes we can brutalize the North Vietnamese into making concessions at the negotiating table, that we can convert.
Oh, someone said AIDS is labeled as a sexually explicit message on Twitch. What's up with that? That's probably my fault. I have very heavy filters on, especially for sexual things, because sometimes bots will and men will sexually harass me, but it doesn't let me choose the terms. It's like, do you want the sexual one on or off? So I guess because that would be a sexual harassment way to be like, you're gonna get, I think that's probably why it does it.
By words alone, a corrupt Saigon government into a government representative and responsive to the needs of its people. Yeah, a dangerous effort is underway in this country to confuse, to divide, to intimidate the American people, including the news commentators of our country. When the great television networks and one of our most distinguished senior statesmen are assaulted by the very highest executives of our government, then it seems to me that no citizen is safe and liberty itself is in danger.
We really started to get into questions of like surveillance during this time and free speech during this time.
It is not the method of America. So I plead again to every citizen, and especially to those in the press and in television on whom all of us depend for our information, do not let them scare you into silence.
Yeah. Very inspirational to me. So in Congress, there were lots of differences of opinions about the war. Some stood solidly behind President Johnson and argued in favor of victory at any cost. They were known as hawks, like a war hawk is someone who always wants to go to war. And people who wanted an immediate withdrawal were known as doves, because doves are kind of symbolic of peace. Aren't these little fun transitions? Like, I keep plugging this AP shop slides, but they really just are like good. Like, they just do a nice job. So we kind of already talked about student protest. So 300,000 Americans marched in New York. There was another march in D.C. Lots of big protests. The Vietnam War is a very, very, very unpopular. 50,000 people tried to shut down the Pentagon. And this is anti-war demonstrators storming the Pentagon. Okay, music.
Thousands of demonstrators opposed to the Vietnam War assembled in the nation's capital for a mass protest. For the most part orderly, minor scuffles did occur between the demonstrators and hecklers. A 3-hour parade takes the demonstrators across the Potomac on their way to the Pentagon. The crowd, estimated at about 50,000 persons, was a loose confederation of some 150 groups and included adults, students, even children. It is at the Pentagon where the first test of strength comes. Military police contain the crowd, but clashes soon break out. Federal marshals arrest several who attempt to break through the protective line.
And what's even, like, not to bring down the vibe, I mean, we're already kind of talking about depressing things, but whenever I watch these, most of me is like, wow, it's just like today. And then I remember that it is just like today, except today the police have way more weapons and military grade equipment. So I don't... Because, like, look at the police and the weapons they have and the uniforms they're wearing. It's definitely aggressive. Like, they are holding guns. But, like, think about the way police look today. And, like, look, the police aren't wearing masks. You can see their faces. They all have their badge numbers. Like... It's spooky.
Forcing the marshals, a second wave of MPs with fixed bayonets in scabbards move into position.
Like, they do have bayonets, but at the end of the day, a bayonet is different than like a tank with like a semi-automatic weapon.
And tear gas is used. 6 break into a Pentagon side door, but are quickly apprehended in the day-long disturbance.
The music is giving Star Wars.
The next day, campfires are lighted to hold off the autumn chill. The same weekend saw nationwide demonstrations supporting American GIs in Vietnam. The Pentagon protest was less violent in its second day of sitting in. The 2-day protest ends with over 600 arrested and the widespread opinion that the demonstration made everyone a loser.
Made everyone a loser? Is that what they just said? God. So with the rise of the New Left, college campuses became the center of political protest. Like we talked about, Berkeley was a very, very synonymous with protest. And the teach-ins. This is a picture of a teach-in to give you a little more detail. This is meetings where usually they promoted unconditional American withdrawal. Because this is the thing. The American government, like the presidents throughout this time, because again, it was 20 years, so multiple presidents, were like, we'll withdraw if you do X. We'll withdraw if you do Y. And a lot of these people are like, we just need to withdraw. Like, we just need to wrap it up, get on out of here. So this is a picture you can see. They would have speakers, especially in the later 60s and 70s. They would have Vietnam veterans come and refugees and people that like really had firsthand information. The strongest anti-war group, like we said, was the SDS that ended up kind of falling apart later on in the 70s. This is the Columbia Revolt in 1968.
On April 23rd, SDS held a demonstration in which we planned to demonstrate inside Low Library to protest Columbia's complicity with the Institute for Defense Analysis, its racism in building the gym in Morningside Park, and its attempted suppression of the left by disciplining 6 students. About 500 people joined us at the Sundial. We were opposed by about 200 jocks. We found that not only were the jocks there blocking our way, But we found when we got to Low Library that the library was locked by the administration.
I must have thought that would stop us, but it didn't. As we went into Harlem, we busted into the gym side.
The pigs called in reinforcements.
Now we have fake police and ski masks and Hakas and Honda Civics running down minorities for bounty. God, such a depressing time. This is a lot. I hate when the police hit people with those sticks. I don't like that. That makes me very uncomfortable. I'm not a fan. So lots of college campus, like suppression of free speech, police being weaponized against students. Kent State happened around this time, if you know what that is. We talked about it in my Vietnam War videos. There's like a million of them. So draft resistors. They had a lot of demonstrations where they would burn their draft cards. A lot of people also felt like the draft was very classist is I guess the best word I could use, because like if you were someone like Donald Trump that could like pay a doctor to be like, you have bone spurs, you could get out of it. If you were in college, you could get out of it. So a lot of wealthier men were like, oh, let me go to law school, let me go to medical school, because like they had the means to do that. So a lot of the people that ended up being forced to serve were poor. It was a much higher percentage minority than white population. If you look at like minority means like less than 50% of the population. So if you look at the numbers, it was skewed. Like, it was not being, people were not, I don't think the draft is ever okay, but they were not being drafted in an equitable or fair way, which upset a lot of people naturally. And former Olympic boxing lightweight heavy gold medal winner Muhammad Ali refused to take the oath of induction into the army after being drafted. He was drafted. Big famous person getting drafted. They did the draft differently at different points in time because again 20-year war, so I'm not 100% sure how they were doing the selection when he was drafted, but he was drafted. He had converted to Islam and was a part of the Nation of Islam, and he basically said, I'm not going to go to the war for religious grounds, saying that he could not participate in a war that conflicted with his faith. And his quote was, I ain't got no quarrel with them Viet Cong. Again, Viet Cong is like kind of a slur. They're referring to the National Liberation Front, which was the communist uprising in the South, a lot of whom U.S. soldiers were fighting against, especially in the mid-60s. And so another very common sentiment, especially among black men being drafted, was Viet Cong never called me no N-word, which, good point. Very good point. So he had moral and political opposition to the war. He said the war was unjust and racist. He said that African Americans were being sent to fight and die for a country that denied them civil rights. Again, this is 1967, so right during the civil rights movement. He linked his anti-war stance with the broader civil rights struggle, criticizing the hypocrisy of fighting for democracy abroad while suppressing it at home. Because you're saying like, Mr. Redacted is lit right now. They're playing video games. I think they're winning. He is having fun. Y'all can hear that? Oh my God. Because I guess in the other setup, it was louder to me, but I think the way like it's positioned with the microphone. So anyway, because the U.S. is being very hypocritical during this time. The U.S. is being like, we have to go to the south of Vietnam to like support democracy and support free speech and support capitalism. Like that's the messaging they're giving. But then at home, you're drafting your citizens. You're not letting people speak out. You're suppressing free speech. So like, what are you even fucking talking about? So after refusing to be inducted, he was arrested and stripped of his boxing titles and banned from boxing. In June 1967, he was convicted of draft evasion and sentenced to 5 years in prison and fined $10,000 and had his passport revoked. They were not playing. Yikes. Because keep in mind, he's a famous figure. So they wanted to kind of use him as an example. Like, we will punish the fuck out of you. Because I'm sure a lot of his fans watched him and were like, oh my God, I should do that too. Like, he's an inspiration to people because this is an inspirational thing to do, to like take a stand in this way. He remained free on appeal and did not serve prison time, but was unable to box for over 3 years during his prime. This was highly controversial and was very polarizing. Many people said he's unpatriotic. They really did not like this, especially the conservative side. A lot of people saw him as a hero. So he became a symbol for resistance in the growing anti-war movement. So later on in 1971, they unanimously overturned his conviction, ruling that his conscientious objector status had been improperly denied. You can be like, I'm a conscientious objector, which is exactly what he was trying to do, saying, I will not fight for a religious reason, a personal reason, which like is a legal thing to do. A lot of them really get harassed, and sometimes they make them do like non-violent military positions like cooking and cleaning and stuff. So like I'm not going to tell you it's like an easy out, but that is a legal option within our legal framework. And again, I'm against the draft because I think it goes against consent and all those things, but there is a legal way to, I don't want to say get out of it, but you get what I'm trying to say. But by this time, public opinion on the war had also shifted significantly. Much more people became against the war because now we're starting to hit close to that 20-year mark. So people are like kind of fucking over it. So his reputation did begin to recover, but very, very polarizing. Gets 5 years. Because I think Muhammad Ali, he changed his name when he converted. And I think maybe Clay was like his like government name originally. I've always just known him as Muhammad Ali though, but I also don't know anything about sports. So by 1968, there were about 10,000 draft resistors, people unwilling to serve. A lot of them fled for Canada, like that one guy was freaking the fuck out at, lots of hippies in Canada. And the nation's youth became increasingly divided as some chose to fight for the United States and Vietnam, and other people sought deferments to go to college, because you could be like, oh, I'm in college, I'll go later. And then people would just like keep going to college. And then I also think if you got married and had a baby, you could get out of it. So yeah. It's a lot. And like we said, more poor people, more men of color than other groups were being drafted. I met a guy at Walgreens who had a Vietnam War veteran hat on, and he was like really struggling to use the little coin machine. So I was like helping him with it. And he was telling me how he was a teacher and then he got drafted and then he went and fought for like 2 years or something. And then he came back and they wouldn't rehire him because he came back like not at the beginning of the school year. And they were like, oh, we already filled that position. Like, sorry. And he just didn't get his job back. And he was like, that literally was illegal. Like, they were supposed to hold your position for you if you got drafted. Like, they were supposed to. But he was like, I just got a job somewhere else. And then he ended up getting cancer because he was exposed to Agent Orange. But now he's cancer-free. I should have him on here. I hope he's doing well. A large number of minorities who could not afford the cost of college responded to the draft and went to Vietnam, like I mentioned. So this is draft dodgers.
Raise your right hand and repeat after me.
The Army will call up 45,000 youngsters next month alone, nearly all bound for Vietnam. The ultimate decision on who will go and who won't lies with the draft boards, usually made up of wealthy local businessmen who meet in their spare time to hear appeals.
What do you find to be the attitude of mind of
not
draftees
wealthy
coming
local
to the
businessmen.
camp? Do
Everyone
they
looks
bitterly
pissed.
resent going into the armed services, or do they accept it?
In the majority of the cases, the men are not enthusiastic to enter the army.
Gee, I wonder why.
Call off your first and middle name. This step will constitute your induction into the United States Army.
I can't think
If
of a
you have
worse
no
group
middle
of people
name,
to decide.
Substitute the word none. Good. There's Dougherty.
William Joseph.
Minkowski.
Robert Edward.
Velez.
Jose Antonio.
Scaramandella.
Dominic Joseph.
Gottlieb.
Robert Stephen.
All over America, folksy slogans echo General Westmoreland's call for more men to join Big Brother and volunteer. But in a nation not wholeheartedly behind the war, more and more voices are being raised against how non-volunteers are being called up for service.
I wonder what boomers would have been
Every
like
boy
without the
who's
Vietnam
finally
War.
ordered to report,
I
at
do
least
too.
6 others of similar age are able to stay at home.
They do look scared. I would be
Good
scared.
morning, men. This is room 204. This is where you'll be the rest of the day for induction. Now then, you'll be sent here by your local draft boards for the purpose of going into the service. You'll be here all day, so you'll make yourself comfortable. Now then, there's a few things we have
On
to
those
find out.
fuck-ass
If
benches.
there's anybody in here that has police records or medical evidence submitted by their doctors. If you have medical evidence...
I'd have to get a police record quick. I'm so sorry, and I truly mean I would rather go to jail than war. And I mean that. I mean that. I was talking about with a friend recently, because I have a friend who was telling me how years ago he had to spend a night in jail. And so me and my fiance were talking about it, like, if you had to spend a night in jail, like, what would be your play? And my fiance said a very similar thing to what my friend told me their experience was, because my friend, again, this happened a long time ago to him, and he didn't hurt anybody. He said, like, he was like, I just kept my head down. I didn't eat anything the whole time. I didn't talk to anybody the whole time. I literally just laid on my bunk and looked at the ceiling the whole 24 hours that I was in there. And he was like, I felt like I'm a bigger guy, so if I just completely minded my own business, no one would really talk to me. And my fiance said the exact same thing. He was like, I would just do that. Like, I feel like, because he's like a bigger guy, so he was like, I don't think anyone would like try and attack me if I wasn't like being bad towards them and being annoying. I do not think that that would be the case for me. I think that I have a very specific look, and I like the nails, the lashes, the hair. Like, I think I would stand out a little bit, and I don't mean that in a way that's derogatory towards others. You get what I'm trying to say. So I think I'd have to turn the charm on. I really think, like, I'd have to turn it all the way up. Like, I would have to be building those relationships. I think I could get some, like, social support from being a teacher. I think that might make some people hate me, but I think if I spin it in the right way, like, it could be well. Like, I think I'd have to be networking. That's, like, whoever's in charge and everyone's scared of, like, I'd have to be like, what's up? Like, I'd have to be networking. I would have to rely on the personality factor because, like, I don't know if y'all know this, I'm 5'2", so, like, I don't know how to fight. You can tell I don't. So I would really just have to be like, what is up? Like, I think my play I'd be like, do you want legal advice? I know a thing or two. ABN, always be networking. Always be networking. Really, really horrible. Actually, I wanted to watch a little bit more of this.
Raise your right
papers. So you make yourself comfortable. Now then, there's a few things we have to find out.
You'd love my Twitch class in
Is
jail.
anybody in here that has police records or medical evidence submitted by...
They used the draft from 1964 to 1973 and drafted 2.2 million men. 10-year draft is crazy to me. That is so fucking insane.
By the doctors. If you have medical evidence, pin it onto the front of your papers. Onto the front of your papers. Now, if you have police trouble, you'll let us know.
I'd be like, I have police trouble.
So we can take care of you.
Not so we can take care of you.
If you don't tell us, and you go on into the service, and they find out later, it can make it pretty rough for you.
This guy's over it. Cigarette guy, like, he's over it.
A complete physical and a written test. As you see on the board over here, it tells you about what you're going to be doing today. You'll be going into service for 2 years. 2 years.
That's so long.
The main complaint by the critics is that if these young men had been fortunate enough to be students, they wouldn't have been called up at all. Students are nearly always deferred.
Gentlemen, you'll be in this room for about an hour and 15 minutes to an hour and a half taking the Armed Forces Qualification Test. The scores you receive in this test will help you...
Okay, a lot of these people probably can't read very well because they probably have experienced economic hardships, so they were forced to drop out at a relatively young age. And as if drafting them is not enough, you're gonna make them take a fucking test? What could they possibly get that means you're not going? I'd be like, what's the score for I'm not allowed to go? Because I'll achieve it or lower myself to it.
Determine to a large degree exactly what kind of work you'll be doing if and when you're inducted in the Armed Forces. To become a permanent part of your military and selective service record also.
Would you guys bomb it or try and do well? I really don't know because I feel like if you do horrible, maybe they'll be like, oh my God, she's so stupid. She can't fight. Let's like put her in the kitchen or a janitor or something. Cool with me. Or they would be like, oh, she's so stupid. Put her on the front lines. It doesn't matter if she dies in the first 5 minutes. And then conversely, if you do super well, would it be like, oh my God, you're so smart. We need you out there. Or would it be like, oh my God, you're so smart. We need you in here. ASVAB. Yeah. It determines where you get sent. I know a lot of the kids at my school take the ASVAB. I think this is a slightly different version than the one they do today, but I don't know.
And we also feel you should know if you fail this test, and we feel you've deliberately failed the test, you can be inducted regardless of the score you attain on this test.
Oh, I guess that answered my
More and
question.
more colleges throughout the country are taking exams to prove that they're too intelligent to be called up. These youngsters are being required to show that they're intelligent enough to be in the army. Many of them don't want to prove the point. And if they do pass the test, there's always the hurdle of the medical exam.
I would start coughing. I'd throw up.
Until recently, nearly 50% of youngsters eligible for call-up
My
were
ex
rejected
failed
on
the
medical
ASVAB.
grounds.
I do know the ASVAB, like, you have to get certain scores for certain branches, so I do think you can fail. But, like, if you're drafting people, we can skip the test. Like, let's just skip that part. That's enough. Not the privacy screen, so they don't cheat. I'd be like...
The medical requirements for draftees have been lowered to meet the increasing demand for troops. But there's been no lowering of the standards required on eyesight.
I'd be like, I don't know. Cal. I bet some people did cut their toes.
Psychiatrist at the New York Center, if he found many cases of malingering.
I would say
what's that mean?
We see a large portion where the men try to aggravate existing symptoms. Of course, we see sometimes men who invent some symptoms of mental or nervous disorders. But on the average, the number is not too overwhelming.
I would be acting
What do you find to be the attitude of mind
the worst
that
version of
draftees come
myself.
to here?
I'd be pulling my own
Is
hair
there a
out. I'd
resent
be
going into the
biting
armed
and
services, or
ripping
do
at
they
my
accept
fake nails. Like, they'd be like, we don't want to be near you at all.
Cases, the men are not enthusiastic to
Eating
enter
beets.
the army.
I would be like...
Of course, they accept the obligations.
Like, pretend that you're this doctor interviewing me, and this is an empty chair. When he was trying to ask me the questions, I'd be like, so, tell me about yourself. Like, I would literally just seem like so unwell while I was there that, like, they'd have to get me out of here.
As a law-abiding citizen, but they are not very happy about it.
The ultimate decision on who will go and who won't lies with the draft boards, usually made
They
up
just
of wealthy
look like
local
assholes,
businessmen
as if
who
the
need in their
cigar
spare
is
time
not
to hear
enough.
appeals. They're not paid for the job.
Who volunteers for this?
The cases they hear
Wealthy
fall in
businessmen.
fairly regular categories. The most common ground for appeal is that call-up will bring hardship to a young man's family.
Not the wealthy local men again. Can't think of a worse group of people. Oh my god, you're right, the lobotomies, there's no winning.
And I see that they're asking for department for the reason that the family needs you at home.
Yes, that's correct, sir.
What is the reason for their need?
Well, the reasons for the need is because I'm the only member of the family who is able to work right now, and I feel, my family feels as well, that they cannot continue living in the standard they are without my support.
What does your family consist of?
The draft boards have pretty firm rules to work on. If you're between 19 and 26, you're eligible, unless you can show that you're at college, that you're married with a child, that you have a pregnant wife, that your job is essential to America's war effort, or that your call-up will bring hardship.
I guess that could be another hack, is like you get a job at like a gun manufacturer. That's probably less bad.
Process of the board that you qualify for a hardship classification 3A for a period of 1 year, at which time we will again review your case. And
Only a year? He has to come back to y'all?
If there's any change in your circumstances, you are to advise the board. If we do not,
A lot of people would get married or get pregnant to get out of it.
We will call you again in a year or soon.
People probably did fake
The Army will call up
pregnancies.
45,000 youngsters
I think you're
next
taking a
month
doctor's
alone,
note,
nearly
though.
all bound for Vietnam.
But I feel like if your doctor was chill.
You men have now been inducted into the armed forces of the United States. Each one of you is now a member of the United States Army and is amenable to the regulations, the Uniform Code of Military Justice, and all other applicable laws and regulations. The induction ceremony is now over, and I shall now administer the oath of allegiance. Group, heads up. Raise your right hand and
They
repeat
do not
after
look
me.
happy.
I, and state your full name, do solemnly swear that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States.
While thousands of youngsters are pledging allegiance to their country every week, thousands more are finding ways to avoid the draft.
I keep wondering
by
how many of
taking
these men made
elongated
it
college
back.
courses, which will keep them as
Yeah.
students beyond the present draft age of 26. This is one of the practices which Senator Robert Kennedy attacked this week. Critics of the present system argue that it allows class distinction to affect a boy's future. That because a father can afford to keep his son at college until he's 26, he's been given the right to buy his son out of the danger of being called up. The price these men may have to pay is much higher.
The Uniform Code of Military Justice. So help me God.
So help me God.
What does God have to do with this?
I'd like to congratulate you men.
Oh, congratulations.
I hope you will all have a successful tour of duty, and I hope that each one of you will be proud to serve in the United States Army.
I wonder if that guy was drafted.
The present selection system is under close scrutiny at the moment by a presidential committee. While in Washington this week, both hawks and doves are predicting an escalation of the war after the November the 8th election. As time goes by, the outcry against the recruiting system is likely to get not quieter, but louder.
Ugh, really horrible time. I wish we were ending on like a better note. And that's one of the things that's awkward about this topic is it was just like a bunch of small topics together. But, oh good, my shirt's 100% see-through, perfect. I hope that you felt informed by this with dull tone. I hope you don't die in this war you're forced to be in. Because that guy probably has to do this like every week and it probably just gets so depressing after a while. But yeah, I hope that you learned from this. I think what I want to do the next, like, not next week. Next week we're talking about Border Patrol in California. But what I want to do more related to this is the weathermen. That's what's interesting me the most out of all of this. Do we concur about that? What's the other thing that I wrote down? And the Summer of Love. I think those two, I really would like to hit those. And right now I'm reading a book about like weird CIA shit in the 1960s. That's another thing we could talk about. We could talk about that for hours, honestly. I do have a game for you, but before we do that, next week we are learning about California's Great Depression border control. A bunch of people tried to move to California because they wanted jobs, and the Los Angeles Police Department famously established the Bum Blockade, where they turned back migrants that they deemed lacking visible means of support. So, really crazy time that an entire state let the chief of the LAPD like run their state policy. It's actually fucking insane. So yeah, we'll be talking about that next week. Very, very cool. Agreed, the Weatherman was really interesting. I'm glad you loved this stream. Let's go ahead and play our little frickin' game. If you don't know, every week we do a little trivia game about what we learned. It's free. I do not need your email address. I do not want your information. You don't have to put your name in if you do not want to. It's going to ask for your name. Be careful because it might try an autofill. You can put something fun and cute. And yeah, you don't need an account. You don't need an app. You don't need any of that. This reminds me of the OG streaming days. I do want to do more history stuff. I just kind of get burnt out of it while I'm teaching. That's why we're doing a fair amount this summer. So like next week is very history vibes. Let me pull up my schedule and see what else we have coming. I haven't planned super far ahead. Okay, so we have a lot of history stuff coming up. So Great Depression, border control is next week. July 8th is going to be kind of a part 2 to this. We're going to do society in transition. It's basically like the conservative backlash to the counterculture of the 60s. So that'll be another, like, we'll cover a lot of stuff high level and then see where we want to go from there. So yeah, I think that'll be a good one too. And then I don't have planned beyond that. Help, it takes me to the slides and not the game. No, you're correct. I'll put it to the game now. That's me. I control it. There you go. Let me pick one. Do they have anything fun themed? They usually don't do anything over the summer. Also, I just want to say, I made one of my favorite dinners tonight, but I bought the wrong kind of tomatoes, so it wasn't as good, and I found that really upsetting. We're going to do the jungle one, because I like the music from it. There you go. Now it'll let you do your little game. I fixed it. Enjoy. I'll put the directions back on the screen. This was a good stream. I was feeling like very distracted going into it. Do you hear him literally having the time of his life? Do you hear that? Oh, God. My father escaped Vietnam during the war, and now I'm here able to watch all of Miss Redacted's classes about the Vietnam War. Full circle pipeline. X, Cowboy Girl X, I'm being so for real when I say this. does your dad want to be interviewed on this stream? Interviewing people that experience the Vietnam War is something I really desperately want to do, that I think would be something that's very good for society. And it would be a lot of work, but I'm down to do it. So, no pressure. If that's not his jam, unfortunately, there were millions of other victims, so I'm sure I can find somebody to talk to me. But if that is his jam, email me. And it doesn't have to be live. Like, if he's like, I don't want to take questions from people, I don't want to do that, we can do it just like you, him, and me, or just me and him if you don't want to come, whatever. And we can record it, whatever everybody's most comfy with. He sounds absolutely delighted. Yeah, no, he's literally having the time of his life. I remember, this is so corny, I hope he's okay with me telling you this. On our first date, he was like, you're really funny. And I go, thanks. And he goes, funny people really like me because I laugh really loud. And I was like, hell yeah. And it's true. Like, when I need to make this meme. You know that meme of T.I. like recording? I need to make that about him, because like when I was doing stand-up, I could literally specifically hear him laughing. I've been thinking about my dad a lot during this stream, but I think he didn't get drafted because he was in school. My dad almost got drafted but didn't. He almost got drafted at the end. Like, they changed it to a number system where like basically each birthday was ranked, and they were like about to get to his birthday relatively soon, and then the war ended. So like it was getting spooky, he said, for a while. And like my dad, he would say this out of his own mouth, so I don't mean this as an insult. He's not really like a war hero fighting type. Like, think about, now he's very tall, but when he was that age and when he was graduating high school, he was not very tall. We both have glasses. Like, he's more of just like a fun, cool, chill guy. Not really like a, oh, let's go. Like he was in Beta Club, is what I'm trying to say. Oh yeah, there's a lot of people on the game tonight. Mr. Redacted was your biggest fan from the jump. What can I say? Also, I know y'all probably kept seeing me look over here. There were kids playing outside on their bikes, and I think that that's incredibly precious. And they were by themselves, but I'm sure they live in one of the houses, like on this block. There's like not a roundabout, but there's like a grass thing. And they're like riding circles around it, and it's very wholesome to see them not on technology. But I was also like keeping an eye, because sometimes people drive way too fast in this area. And so I was just like, everybody's having fun, not getting hit by cars, right? We're all good? All right. I'm going to go ahead and start the game. If you have not joined yet, it will still let you join, and the code is at the top. God, the music is so good. My assistant did make the game this time. That breaks my heart thinking about 18-year-old band geeks being sent to Vietnam, and that's literally who was getting sent, which is the crazy thing. I did a sample ASVAB negative military interest, but I got a 19 out of 24. Was it a sample? Did you have to enter your email? They might be coming for you. Oh, I guess Berkeley was a good answer, but that's a school, not a neighborhood. Kind of a trick question. Sorry about that. Well, it's a city. I want a poke bowl. It sounds really good right now. I'm still mad about my dinner, but whatever, I guess. Okay, now he sounds mad. It seems like they're fighting. The girls are fighting! I'm not in contact with my father. I know most of his lore through my mom. I hope you get someone to talk to you, because I would also love to know more. Okay, thank you. That's good to, I mean, yeah, that's understandable. I didn't give them any info. I've been on SSRIs for way too long for them to want. Tonight was a good stream, a nice little hodgepodge of information. Ugh, my nose is itchy. I think it's because I was outside after the grass was cut. I just got a bird feeder, but none of the birds are coming to eat the food. How long does it take for them to realize it's there? It's been 2 hours. I literally put it there. So I guess it's been 4 hours because I put it there at like 6. Or no, it's 9. It's been 3 hours. Like 2 days? Okay, I'll check back. Because I put it, it's one of the window ones. So I put it on a kitchen window because like I'm in the kitchen a lot because I like cooking and we just kind of hang out in there. And I'm excited. And then they'll swarm. It's exponential. I'm about to turn 34 and unfortunately getting really into birds. I feel it happening to me. It's gonna happen. I'm turning 28. I guess not for a while, but I'm sorry you clicked the wrong one. It's a sick transformation. My great-grandma had a friend that was a switchboard operator in World War I and was one of the only female veterans of her generation. Kind of crazy to think about women's roles in the military over the years. I have a friend, what war was it? It was like in the early 2000s and she was in the Middle East. There was like a lot of shit going on over there. And she was one of like the first women in combat and she said they like literally wouldn't let them do anything. Like she was like, we got there and we're like so confused because we were like, we're supposed to be equal now. And they were like, yeah, you're gonna stay here. And she said her job was to like go talk to the women in the town and like build relationships. And she was like, well, I don't speak that language. And they were like, you guys can like talk about periods or whatever, it'll be fine. I was like, that's actually crazy. And she said that her like base commander, I don't know, literally took all the women that were there. She said there were like 8 of them and put them in a room and said, we don't bring women home in body bags. So basically I'm not gonna let y'all do anything. Hannah in first place, Sarah E, Lizard Beth, Bloom, Ams, Cowboy Girl, Kamika has heard, the word is love, Midge, Kylie, Dodge Draft, Dodgeball, Leah, a Skyline parking lot, Ness, Liz, Weatherman, Megan's iPhone, a college protest parking lot, Amanda, Melly Lynn, an NB parking lot, Miss Hill, a Home Depot parking lot, Elena, Bogdan, Tracy, Stacy.com, and Emily fell off a little bit, but thankful they were here nonetheless. Memes, not really that memeable. Anything to share? Anything you want to talk about next time? I'll hang out for like 2 more minutes, but this was a grand old time. I liked this. This was enjoyable. I'll tell Mr. Redacted to get a soundproofer for his office so we can be, you know, in our safe space. Young adults doing young adults thing in San Francisco. Is this the end of humanity? They were like, whoa, whoa, whoa. Communism. When you're in the park, it's communism. Shut down the park! Get rid of the parks! Cops and all their interviews we watched. Good meme. I love when y'all make the memes. I made Ashley Madison memes while watching the replay since I couldn't attend live. Is it cool if I share them tonight? Absolutely, it's cool if you share them tonight. Lemur Banana, I always want your memes. Always, always, always. Post them now, please. We can't have the public spending the time in public spaces. I hate my test anxiety. I go for speed and not correct. You guys, it's a fun trivia game. There's nothing to be anxious about. Nothing to be anxious about. Did I finish all the things I was supposed to do today? No. Perfect. The photos did get done. They're fucked up, but they're done. Stream. Doing it now. Contract. Haven't read that. I'm going to the spa tomorrow. Isn't that nice? Can we please do an LGBJ stream? Fine. Created Medicare and Medicaid, said the N-word, signed the Civil Rights Act into law, whipped out his dick in public. When did he whip out his dick in public? Ashley Madison stream because I was absent last week. A man who hates his wife. I'm still horny though. Ashley Madison. Me every time Misredacted says, this was a good stream, even though she couldn't see me. I know she felt it. Aww. A woman realizing her date saying, looking for someone other than my life ad years ago. I must get out of here as quick as possible. Ashley Madison users who value thrill over decency. Leave your spouse in a mature way or draw 25. Oh, that's fun. Very, very fun. This has been a fun first stream for me. Really glad I could hop on. I'm glad you were here. I hope you come back. Thank you so much for acknowledging my Ashley Madison stream. I was so sad to miss it because I knew it would be funny AF. I hope it lived up to the hype. You were missed. You carried the chat many, many nights. Alrighty. This was a grand old time. I will see you next week. What was I about to say? I do have a bunch of family coming in town after next week. So I might be kind of like lazy, not lazy, but like busy on posting. Tuesday I'll still be here. Everyone's getting here Wednesday, I think. So yeah, I might just be a little harder to find next week. So please come to stream because I will be there for that. Have a great night. I will see you next week. Love you so much.